If this war stops, someone goes to prison. And if it doesn't, your cost of living is about to explode. Stop looking at the maps on your screen. The trajectory of a missile is not determined by the distance to the enemy's border, but by the distance between a leader's desk and the loss of power. Professor Jiang's law of proximity is not a textbook theory or a speculative rumor. It is a cold, clinical diagnostic tool for a dying empire. This is not about strategy. It's about survival inside power. Instead, they are complex filters where the decision that reaches the world stage is merely the final ripple of a much larger splash made inside the halls of domestic power. The law of proximity tells us that the incentives sitting in the same room as the leadership, the internal rivals, the donors, and the immediate threats to legitimacy, will outweigh the long-term survival of the nation every single time. This is not about geopolitics in the traditional sense. It is about what happens inside power when stopping becomes more dangerous than continuing. When that threshold is crossed, systems do not negotiate, they accelerate. To understand why this is happening today, you must look at the history the West actually knows, the collapse of the Roman Republic. Why did Julius Caesar cross the Rubicon? It wasn't a strategic masterstroke for the glory of Rome. It was the law of proximity in its purest, most desperate form. Caesar was facing legal ruin, total bankruptcy, and a prison cell in Rome. For him, the threat of prosecution was nearer than the abstract threat of a civil war. He didn't destroy the republic because he wanted to be an autocrat. He destroyed it because stopping meant his own personal and political death. This is the proximity trap. When the internal cost of peace becomes higher than the external cost of war, the system stops searching for balance and begins to remove its own exits. You can see this structural logic in every major decision-making center today. The actors who could negotiate, slow things down, or build a path out are being systematically sidelined or disappeared. This is not a coincidence. It is what it looks like when a system begins to delete its own off-ramp. In a rational conflict, you leave an exit ramp. You keep the enemy's moderate leaders alive because you need someone to sign the treaty. But the recent targeted liquidations, most notably of figures like Ali Larijani, the only man in Tehran capable of coordinating a pragmatic retreat, signal that the bridge has been intentionally burned. No off-ramp means no cheap energy, no stable supply chains, and no controlled inflation. This removal of the off-ramp happens because for those currently at the levers of power, the exit ramp leads directly to a court summons or a total loss of control. In this environment, moderation becomes a liability. Any actor who tries to slow the machine down takes on more immediate risk than those who push it forward. The structure itself begins to select for more extreme behavior, not because individuals are inherently irrational, but because the system rewards escalation and punishes restraint. We see this play out in the visible split in the current conflict. One part of the system operates on economic logic and traditional strategic gains, while another part, in some circles, operates on a purely ideological timeline. When these two systems of logic diverge, decisions stop being about win-loss ratios and start being about the preservation of a specific ideological or political structure at any cost. The divine soul of the movement isn't worried about the national interest because its nearest incentive is a structural survival that renders the rational state obsolete. They are willing to let the system hit the wall because in their view, the wall is the only way to restructure reality. My critique of the current American complacency is that we are waiting for a diplomatic breakthrough that is structurally impossible. We are looking for peace in a system where peace has become a threat to the people in charge. This is a consumption war, a mechanism designed to burn resources to buy time for an elite class that has run out of options. But we must understand the one critical boundary. Internal pressure can push a system to accelerate, but it cannot remove external constraints. There are hard limits that cannot be negotiated away. Money runs out, logistics begin to fail, the energy supply hits a wall. Time begins to work against the system rather than for it. And when those limits are finally reached, the system does not gradually slow down or find a late exit, it breaks. From the inside, every step still feels rational, every escalation solves a short-term, proximate problem, but the accumulation of those decisions pushes the entire structure closer to a boundary it cannot control. The disappearance of the off-ramp means that the system is no longer choosing its direction, it is simply continuing until something forces it to stop. And that stop will not come from a negotiation table, it will come from a total systemic constraint. There is no off-ramp left, only a wall. And when it hits, it won't be the system that pays first. It will be you.